Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, what's up? McJibbin here, back with another reaction video. Thank you to... I thought I had it ready. I think it's here.
That, sure.
By the way, Alright, yeah, Melkor. Oh, great name, by the way, Melkor. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I don't know that much. I am aware of Melkor, but hey, if you want me to react to that stuff too, whatever. But Melkor, obviously, you know, shout out to you. Thank you for letting me know that this actually continues. For some reason, as I'm going through so many more different videos, I thought it was just the 1914 one. There are more parts to it, guys. Let's get into it. Original video down at the top of the link. Original link to the video down at the top of the description below. Let's do it. And go.
January 1915. World War I is just...
By the way, guys, more and more people are joining the club. I love the channel. You guys are doing so great recommending and commenting. So I love you guys to join the party. We'll make room at the table. Join me on my journey to try and learn as much as I can about history and piece together the puzzle that is world history throughout the millennia. And so love to have you guys join us. Slap that subscribe button. Just punch it. And yeah, so let's get into it. This is my favorite channel. Until proven otherwise, let's do it.
Just fight. January 1915. World War I is just 5 months old. And already, around 1 million soldiers have fallen. A war that began in the Balkans has engulfed much of the world. The Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, fight the Allies, Britain, France, Russia, Serbia, and Montenegro.
I've said too many. I would explain how one of my favorite papers I wrote, or least painful, was about, you know, who started World War I. I've said it so many times that I almost don't even want to mention it. But yeah, it went from a regional conflict in the Balkans, but through allies. I've said it many times in other videos.
Belgium and Japan. In Poland and the Baltic, the Russian army has suffered a string of massive defeats, but continues to battle German and Austro-Hungarian forces. Austro-Hungarian troops have also suffered huge losses and are humiliated by their failure to defeat Serbia. In the Caucasus Mountains, Russian and Ottoman forces fight each other in freezing winter conditions. While on the Western Front, French, British, and Belgian troops are dug in facing the Germans, in trenches stretching from the English Channel to Switzerland. As part of the world's first strategic bombing campaign, Germany sends 2 giant airships known as Zeppelins to bomb Britain. They hit the ports of King's Lynn and Great Yarmouth.
I know, I mean, I can see little, what I believe are little airplanes down the bottom. Obviously, there are, by the time World War II, you know, air power is known about. I mean, there are very primitive airplanes, but it seems like any anti-aircraft weapon. I think they're very. I mean, the Hindenburg, as an example, is very. They're very flammable, and they're huge, slow-moving targets. I just don't see how they would be an effective weapon at all.
That's campaign. Germany sends 2 giant airships known as Zeppelins to bomb Britain. They hit the ports of King's Lynn and Great Yarmouth, damaging houses and killing 4 civilians. At sea, At the Battle of Dogger Bank, the British Navy sinks one German cruiser, but the rest of the German squadron escapes. Command of the seas has allowed Britain to impose a naval blockade of Germany, preventing vital supplies, including food, from reaching the country by sea. Germany now retaliates with its own blockade. It declares the waters around the British Isles to be a war zone, where its U-boats will attack Allied merchant ships without warning. Britain relies on imported food to feed its population. Germany plans to starve her into surrender. On the Eastern Front, German Field Marshal von Hindenburg launches a winter offensive and inflicts another massive defeat on the Russian army at the Second Battle of Masurian Lakes. The Russians lose up to 200,000 men, half of them surrendering amid freezing winter conditions. The Russians have more success against Austria-Hungary. The city of Przemysl falls after a 4-month siege, netting the Russians 100,000 prisoners. Austria-Hungary's total losses now reach 2 million. Meanwhile, the British and French send warships to the Dardanelles to threaten Constantinople, capital of the Turkish Ottoman Empire. They believe a show of force will quickly cause Turkey to surrender. They bombard Turkish shore forts in the narrow straits, but 3 battleships are sunk by mines and 3 more damaged. The attack is called off.
I know a big thing about World War I is, I know in a few wars prior, Russo-Japanese War, you know, there have been, you know, the fruits of the Industrial Revolution in terms of weaponry. You know, it just changed its warfare so fast in terms of, you know, in a historical time scale that they still had the idea in their head of like battles like that, you know, you fight till you win. It might last a few days max, and they were even more confident, I guess, with their great weapons. That's why I ended up choosing Germany in my paper to as the starter of the war, although it is very you know, not by unanimous, you know, like I had to pick one, and they seem to be the most the biggest kind of muscling around, kind of wanting to start the war. It could be a lot of people who started World War I, but the trench warfare, just nobody thought just how much of a static kind of warfare it would be.
On the Western Front, the British attack at Neuve-Chapelle, but the advance is soon halted by German barbed wire and machine guns.
Pretty much everyone wanted to try out their military toys that were fruits of the Industrial Revolution.
British and Indian units suffer 11,000 casualties, about a quarter of the attacking force. 6 weeks later, at the Second Battle of Ypres, the Germans attack with poison gas for the first time on the Western Front. A cloud of lethal chlorine forces Allied troops to abandon their trenches. But the Germans don't have enough reserves ready to exploit the advantage. Soldiers on both sides are quickly supplied with crude gas masks as a chemical weapons arms race begins. The Allies land ground troops at Gallipoli, including men of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, the Anzacs. Their goal is to take out the shore forts that are preventing Allied warships reaching Constantinople. But they immediately meet fierce Turkish resistance and are pinned down close to the shore.
I need to learn more about
the day before the landings. The Ottoman Empire begins the systematic deportation and murder of ethnic Armenians living within its borders. The Armenians are a long-persecuted ethnic and religious minority, suspected of supporting Turkey's enemies. tens of thousands of men, women and children are transported to the Syrian desert and left to die. In all, more than 1 million Armenians perish.
How is this not more well known? That's a lot of people.
The Allies condemn the events as a crime against humanity and civilization and promise to hold the perpetrators criminally responsible. To this day, the Turkish government disputes the death toll and that these events constituted a genocide.
EVE Online is a vast...
On the Eastern Front, a joint German...
In retrospect, or in hindsight, it's so crazy how all of this, you know, trench warfare, static sort of, you know, just stand still. How Germany in World War II just goes into France, circles them around, takes France, conquers Europe so quickly after, you know, being humiliated in the Treaty of Paris, is it? Or Treaty of Versailles, one in 1919. There are so many treaties of Paris, but yeah, that's crazy.
Austro-Hungarian offensive in Galicia breaks through Russian defenses, recapturing Przemysl and taking 100,000 prisoners. It is the beginning of a steady advance against Russian forces. At sea, the British passenger liner Lusitania, sailing from New York to Liverpool, is torpedoed by a German U-boat off the coast of Ireland without warning. 1,198 passengers and crew perish, including 128 Americans. US President Woodrow Wilson and the American public are outraged. But Germany insists the liner was a fair target, as the British used her to carry military supplies. In May, the Allies launched the Second Battle of Artois, in another effort to break through the German lines. The French make the main attack at Vimy Ridge, while the British launch supporting attacks at Aubert Ridge and Festubert. The Allies sustain 130,000 casualties and advance just a few thousand yards.
That's crazy.
That summer, above the Western Front, the Fokker Eindecker helps Germany win control of the air. It's one of the first aircraft with a machine gun able to fire forward through its propeller, thanks to a new invention known as interrupter gear. Allied aircraft losses mount rapidly.
How crazy is that? Imagine them going back like 50 years. That'd be like 1870s or something. You know, that's not that long. That's like 1970 now. Like, if you went back to 1970 now with the stuff we have now, it would be jarring. But imagine just like how much of a leap in military technology the airplane was.
In what becomes known as the Fokker Scourge. Italy, swayed by British and French promises of territorial gains at Austria-Hungary's expense, joins the Allies, declaring war on Austria-Hungary and later the Ottoman Empire and Germany. The Italian army makes its first assault against Austro-Hungarian positions along the Isonzo River, but is repulsed with heavy losses. Meanwhile, the Allies face a crisis on the Eastern Front. The Russians have begun a general retreat, abandoning Poland. German troops enter Warsaw on the 5th of August. Tsar Nicholas II dismisses the Russian army's commander-in-chief, Grand Duke Nicholas, and takes personal command.
I really want to know how Stalin trusted Hitler in World War II. to have a treaty to agree to take Poland. You know, a lot of people forget that it wasn't just Hitler that went into Poland. I mean, Hitler was provoking before that, getting into Sudetenland, in Czechoslovakia, borders of Germany, and taking Austria, and taking back some of the land in Western Germany that the Allies took after the First World War. But that Stalin and Hitler both agreed to invade Poland, and I don't know how, after World War I, just a few decades prior, they trusted him at all.
It will prove disastrous for the Tsar as he becomes more and more closely tied to Russian military defeat. At Gallipoli, the Allies land reinforcements at Suvla Bay.
Hold on.
But
is that a precursor to the Russian Revolution?
Takes personal command. It will prove disastrous for the Tsar as he becomes more and more closely tied to Russian military defeat. At Gallipoli, the Allies land reinforcements at Suvla Bay, but neither they nor a series of fresh attacks by the Anzacs can break the deadlock. Conditions for both sides are terrible. Troops are tormented not only by the enemy, but by heat, flies, and sickness. In the Atlantic, a German U-boat sinks the liner SS Arabic. 44 are lost, including 3 Americans. In response to further US warnings, Germany ends all attacks on passenger ships. On the Western Front, the Allies mount their biggest offensive of the war so far, designed to smash through the front and take pressure off their beleaguered Russian ally.
Imagine how heavy these things are.
Smash through the front and take pressure off their beleaguered Russian ally. The French attack in the 3rd Battle of Artois and 2nd Battle of Champagne. The British, with the help of poison gas, attack at Loos.
Mustard gas?
Despite initial gains, the attacks soon get bogged down, with enormous losses on all sides. Allied troops land at Salonika in Greece to open a new front against the Central Powers and bring aid to Serbia. But the Allies are too late. Bulgaria joins the Central Powers, and their joint offensive overruns Serbia. But the Allied troops land at Salonika in Greece to open a new front against the Central Powers and bring aid to Serbia. But the Allies are too late. Bulgaria joins the Central Powers, and their joint offensive overruns Serbia in 2 months. That winter, the remnants of the Serbian army escape through the Albanian mountains. Their losses are horrific. By the end of the war, 1/3 of Serbia's army has been killed, the highest proportion of any nation. Fierce fighting continues on the Italian front, as Italian troops launch the 3rd and 4th battles of the
Switzerland. We're just chilling, man.
Front, as Italian troops launch the 3rd and 4th battles of the Isonzo. Austro-Hungarian forces, though outnumbered, are dug in on the high ground and impossible to dislodge. In the Middle East, a British advance on Baghdad is blocked by Turkish forces at the Battle of Ctesiphon, 25 miles south of the city. The British withdraw to Kut, where they are besieged. The Allies abandon the Gallipoli campaign. 83,000 troops are secretly evacuated without alerting Turkish forces. Not a man is lost. it's one of the best executed plans of the war.
Kind of like Dunkirk in World War II. Not exactly, because civilian shit were in Dunkirk.
The campaign has cost both sides,
you know what I mean,
250,000 casualties. 1915 is a bad year for the Allies. Enormous losses for no tangible gains. But there is no talk of peace. Instead, all sides prepare for even bigger offensives in 1916, with new tactics developed from earlier failures. All sides still believe a decisive battlefield victory.
You got to give the helmet competition to the Germans.
All sides still believe a decisive battlefield victory is within grasp.
My mom
So,
took the album cover photo.
it seems to me that so far in 1915, that you could tell by the casualties, and the narrator said himself that 1915 wasn't a good year for the Allies. You can tell with the casualty numbers. The Germans are obviously very impressive. They're ready to prove themselves. Sometimes I wonder if I chose the right country to start it in the beginning, because it could have just stayed a regional conflict if Russia didn't rush in. And then you could also blame France and Great Britain for kind of then making it full on, but you can't really blame them because it's all going to affect them. Awesome video. Thanks again for reminding me, Melkor. Check out, I said I would do the French Revolution, not French Revolution, Napoleon Epic History TV, Napoleonic Wars Part 2, but that's before I saw that I hadn't done this one, and I did the Part 1 of World War I before the Part 1 of Napoleonic Wars, so naturally I feel like I felt like I had to do this one first. But next up tomorrow, I will do Napoleonic Wars Part 2. Keep an eye out for that. Hit that subscribe button. Go check out Epic History TV. Keep recommending videos, subscribing, liking, commenting. Thanks, guys, so much. See you next time.